New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Good morning, everybody. So great to be with you again on Saturday morning to talk about Science of Mind. And we're on Chapter 7, Summary of Part 1, The Nature of Being. And, this is a short chapter, fortunately, because each one of these chapters is chock full of information. And we're kind of working with this summary now of what has gone previously, what you've studied previously. And last week you had Reverend Mark, and next week you will have Reverend Brzezinski. And this week we'll be doing the summary, the nature of being. And I kind of love that word being. What is the nature of being? It's not saying the nature of doing necessarily. What is it to be on this planet? And how did we end up here? What are we about? What are we doing? What is it all about? And this chapter sums up what we've studied up until now in part 1. And, what we've learned is that there is a universal presence that is intelligent. There's an intelligent presence in the universe. Now, there's people who, there are people who believe that everything is random, that there is no intelligence behind the universe. But as we study and look into this and use our own intelligence to investigate, I think many of us have come to believe just through that intelligence that there is something behind all of creation. It's not just a collection of random acts that occur and with just the law of physics that are driving it. There is something that is putting everything together, that there's a design, even though that design may be kaleidoscopic in nature. It's always changing. It changes from one moment to the next. And of course, as time beings, we have this kind of short span of time that we don't notice the huge picture, where there's just this constant movement, this constant change. And it could look like chaos. And yet, if we think about the kaleidoscope, that kaleidoscope, as it moves and changes, there's a beautiful design that comes forward. Every time you look through a kaleidoscope, it may change, but there's a design that's there for a moment that is incredible. And I think we can kind of look at our universe and this cosmos in the same way. We don't see those change is taking place as rapidly as, because we are in this particular amount of time. And yet there is change going on very rapidly, and it is also governed by something that is intelligent. And, Ernest Holmes uses the term assumption, and I'll just read the first line. There's a universal presence that acts as though it were intelligent, and we may assume that it is. Okay, so there's an assumption. Yes, let's assume that it is. But there's also something beyond that, I think, and that is our experience. And we're pretty big on experience in religious science. We know that we have these experiences that confirm that there is some sort of intelligence that's working hand in hand with us, right? It's there. It's present. It's always there. And it's not an assumption. It's a deep knowing. So it goes beyond the intellect. It goes into this state of being, in fact, the nature of being. And we know that there's intelligence. We know that there is a law, these natural laws. And, law is just at work. There's no violating the law. The law is what governs nature and governs creation in terms of you can only move through law. You can't violate it. You can't make it change in terms of your will. It just does what it does. And, there's, I'm just going to go through this first paragraph and talk about it. There's all of this formless stuff out of which everything is created. It's without form. It's just stuff. I like that Ernest Holmes calls it stuff, because what else could we call it? We can call it, all of the protons, neutrons. We could go on and on and on about all of these tiny, minuscule particles that make up the material world. But all in all, it is stuff. It's there. It's unformed, and yet it can take form. It's forever taking form. And as science has shown us, that form has issued out from the Big Bang. And we've had the coalescence of stars. We've had the coalescence of planets. We've had all of these things that have happened as a result of that initial beginning. And of course, I believe, maybe we haven't discussed this a lot in religious science, but I do believe we have many beginnings. There's a lot of different theories in science about what is beyond the Big Bang and what happens next, right? And I think it's amazing to, it's pretty mind-blowing to kind of talk about that part of what we call reality, right? And, we know that everything is changing form all the time. We know that we have a brief time here on this planet where we bloom and we experience, we live, we grow. We get to know who we are and what we're doing here. If we want to, right? We can also live unaware if we choose to do that. But I think because you're here, you are wanting to go deeper. What is this about? Who am I? What is my place in this creation? What am I here to do? All of those questions come up for us. And as Ernest Holmes was studying Western philosophy, which he did, a lot of this Science of Mind textbook is based on Western philosophy, and he does bring in Eastern ideas as well. But he really, looked at Christianity, the Christian philosophers, the people who were looking at how things are made up for us in a way that we understand it in spiritual practices and spiritual faiths. And one of the things that he discovered was that there is across different belief systems and different faiths that there is a threefold nature of universal being. And he calls it spirit, soul, and body. And that's very easy for us to get a hold of, right? It's shot through the culture now. We talk about mind, body, spirit all the time. And yet we may not really know what that means, right? We have to investigate it to really know what that means to us rather than just spouting off the words. And spirit is, according to Ernest Holmes, is the great actor. So that is spirit. That's the overall spirit. That is the source, the presence, and the one intelligence. There's soul and body. And soul, for Ernest Holmes, is a medium through which this action, the thought, takes hold. And then the body is the result of the action. So this is in Ernest Holmes' words, this is the macrocosm, right? Spirit, soul, and body. And this is the same thing that we experience ourselves, spirit, soul, and body, as individual emanations of the one. And he goes on to say that spirit is the only conscious actor, the power that knows itself. And I think that's an interesting point, right? Spirit is conscious, a conscious actor. And, I think that in terms of explaining this, he kind of personifies it as an actor, right? When we think of consciousness, I don't know that we personify it. Consciousness is consciousness. It's ever present. It's all over. It is in and through everything. So this is a way for us to understand this more intimately. And at the same time, it kind of narrows what consciousness is, I think. Consciousness is something beyond an actor, that we can kind of wrap our heads around, right? Oh, yeah, it's an actor. It's something that is present, ever present. It is that which is everywhere, right? Everywhere present. And it knows itself. And that's something that that gives it prominence, right? That it knows itself. Spirit knows itself. There's no questions, right? It knows. So it's omniscient. For us, I started this by saying we want to know all these things. We have all these questions. And yet spirit has no questions. It knows itself. It knows what it is. It acts from that deep knowing. And then soul according to Ernest Holmes, obeys the will of spirit. And then the body is the effect of spirit working through law to produce form. So this is how it works. He's explaining it, the nature of being. This is how it works. There is this conscious intelligence at work in the universe, in all of the universes. If we want to expand that to the multiverse, right? It's at work everywhere. There's no place that it's not. So it's always working. And it's conscious intelligence. And it is formed by the word. And, we can go back and look at how we have interpreted this. The word is at the very beginning of Genesis in the Bible. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light, right? Spoke that word, and then that emanated forth. So there is that movement. There's a concept that occurs, right? And behind that, though, is something that is non-conceptual, right? Because God knows everything already. So there's no need of concepts necessarily, right? But speaking this into existence, there is a concept of a human being, a concept of a bird, a concept of a planet, a concept of this or that or the other, right? It is spoken into being. It's conceptualized through this intelligence, and then it is created through law, right? And we don't want to forget the law. It doesn't violate law. There's something that has been put in place that has attributes that create certain things, or that allow the creation of certain things. And it is used in a way that has an effect for the body. So we believe that there's only one power that's acting, only one power, one presence, one mind that is doing the acting. There's nothing that is beyond that. There's only the one. There's not all these different forces, malignant forces or anything. There's only this one unity of being that is acting in the world. And and we also, I think that one thing that I like about this chapter is that he does mention evolution right away. And the evolution of humanity brings it arbitrarily to a place where true individuality functions. And I'm going to use, I want to kind of think about this because we are noticing language more, right, these days. We're seeing how language, and particularly the use of pronouns, has kind of come to the fore more recently as a result of people describing who they are, right? So we think about pronouns. A generation before, a couple of generations before, we were, women were concerned with pronouns because most of the writing used a universal masculine to describe everything. So anything that was of import had that universal masculine attached to it. So I want us to think about this because, when I read this, I usually change him or man. I either change man to humanity, or I change him to they, or use humanity again, or the human. And I changed that language because, first of all, I think that we want to be inclusive, but I think there's something with meaning that happens that is very powerful when we do that. The evolution of humanity. And if we're looking at this multiplicity, the individual, we can look at ourselves as this individual humanity, right? This one. And then we can break it down into the individual parts of humanity, which would be each one of us. And I kind of like that idea of these different individualities within this whole. And you'll have to excuse my little pup here. He's barking at something outside. As I mentioned to people who are meditating with me, we just have to allow those sounds to be and try to just focus on what is at hand. So this evolution, this use of pronouns and looking at us as a collectivity, an individual, individual humanity, right? This whole, and then move down into the individual that makes up humanity, you and I, right? Then it kind of brings us to a different, I think it takes us to a different place. One of the things about our teachings is that we have had a great impact on the world in terms of no separation between us and God, right? That is the biggest, I think that is the biggest revelation that we've had, that there's no separation between us and God. And, with traditional Christianity, there is that deep separation. There is, that yearning to be reunited with God in some way. And, that is a yearning for everyone, right? To come into consciousness and have that unification with spirit. But there's something about that separation and just deep alienation that Western Christianity brought into play, right? That humanity somehow is not worthy, not capable, sinful, right? I guess sin is the biggest thing. And that is a separation from God. Well, I think in this, that is our greatest, that's our greatest idea, right? That there's no separation. And if we have this great individual humanity, and you and I are not separated from this individual humanity, right? We're part of that. It kind of mirrors this over and over again. We are not separated from anything. If we look at, our kin, the animals, if we're not separated from them, that makes a huge difference, doesn't it? We feel kinship, but we also don't feel that separation. There's something that is that's created that enables us to understand and enjoy life much more. And evolution of humanity means that, I think what he's getting at is that as evolution occurs, and he's using humanity as a starting point, right? That's who we are. We're humanity. And I do think that it could be extended to other species as well, right? Evolution occurs across the board, but we're talking about humanity right now. As we evolve, we come to a point where true individuality functions. And then from that day, and this is a quote, a further evolution must be through his conscious cooperation with reality. And in this way, when he's saying reality, reality is the ultimate reality, which is spirit, right? And these are things that we really can't wrap our head around what that ultimate reality is, but we can evolve toward that. And Ernest Holmes uses that image of the upward spiral, that constant spiral, and it is infinite. We may think, oh man, I've got it, I'm enlightened and I'm ready to go and I'm done, right? But that it's something that continues. It's a constant upward spiral in evolution. So we are able to consciously participate in evolution through our thought and our use of the law. And we have to cooperate with the law, right? We can't violate the law, but we can be a part of that evolution. And and he goes on to say that humans must use nature's forces in accordance with her laws and in cooperation with her purpose. Okay, what is the purpose? Now we ask ourselves that question. What is our purpose? That's a big question all the time. And he uses her for nature, right? And and this is part of his conceptualization of these different forces. And nature for him is feminine, but we don't have to make it feminine. It is, we do. That's sort of a convention with humanity, is that we look at nature as feminine, but we don't have to. We don't have to give it that designation. It has certain kinds of specifications that we might look at, but it is not necessarily gendered, right? So cooperation with the purpose of nature. And what is that purpose? That purpose is goodness, truth, and beauty. And this is all encapsulated by this one word that he uses, is self-mastery. And what is the self? In this case, the self-mastery is really coming to know who we are. Coming to know who we are as these individuals. So mastering ourselves. Now, I think this point is so interesting, this next point that he has. And, I go back to this often and kind of ponder it. And he says that humans never create, that humans discover and use. So, that kind of goes against what we might be saying about, excuse me, just for 1 minute. I'm going to try to get my dog. Come here. And I'm so sorry to be interrupted so much today. That man never creates. He discovers and uses. Now that's interesting, isn't it? That we don't create. What does that mean? It seems to go against this idea of co-creation, right? And yet if we look at it, okay, if we're co-creating with God, we are with God. We're not separate, right? We're not separate. When we are in an unconscious state, we are separate. We believe we're separate. We're not separate, but we believe we are separate. And there's a very nuanced thing that's going on here. We discover and we use. we discover, let's step into this step by step, okay? We discover the laws. We discover how we might use the law. We discover how we use our thought process, and we discover what our thoughts are. We want to embody the goodness, truth, and beauty. Those are the thoughts that we want to have, the concepts that we want to have in order to co-create. And I'm going to go back to co-create. We're discovering things, we are evolving, and then we're using these discoveries to co-create with God. That's when we get to the point where we can actually do that co-creating. Now we can also think about, okay, if we discover and use without consciousness, without consciousness, we can do that. We discover and we use all the time, from the time that we discovered stone tools, right? We discovered that and we could use them. And we discovered, how to split the atom for energy. And so we know also that in that discovery, there was a consciousness that there was not the consciousness and the purpose of using those things for goodness, truth, and beauty. And, this can be an ongoing debate. We can say, well, there's goodness that can come out of that knowledge. And yet, it was used for something that was very destructive and harmful. And, harmful enough that it could destroy this planet. So that is an unconscious use and a misuse of our power. We discovered and we misused this knowledge. And, we got into big trouble, and we still have those troubles right now. And I do believe that we are moving toward this purpose, which is goodness, truth, and beauty, to live that purpose. Now, this is also very good, I think, that Ernest Holmes says this. The law has done all it can automatically do for humanity. It has evolved it to a point of individuality and must now let humanity alone discover the secrets of life for himself or for itself. So we're at this point where we are active. We are actively making these discoveries. And it's wonderful, isn't it? It's wonderful that we can do this. And we have that potentiality of perfection, right? We have that. And we also have free will, right? We had the free will to use the discovery of the energy of the atom for good, or we could use it for destructive purposes, right? So that was our choice. We have choice in there. We have the free will to do that. There's no stopping it. It's free will. And this is the hope. In reality, all humans can destroy is some particular embodiment of himself. The divine spark is always intact in potential humanity. So there's always divinity in this. So there's never a point where someone is damned, for example. There's always that spark. And I think that is, that is our hope and our faith, in the goodness of God. So when we awake to this, that we are a thinking center within this whole, right? The whole. When we wake up, we are a thinking center in that whole. And when our thinking is in alignment with God, we can actually evolve in the way of goodness, truth, and beauty. What a great purpose, right? I think I'm going to write that down today, that, my purpose today is goodness, truth, and beauty. I'm going to use that for my affirmation today, that I don't have to think about anything else but goodness, truth, and beauty. That's it. No extraneous thoughts, no, nothing else, just that. And, I think that as we move through this, I would like to go to page 131 at the last paragraph. Spirit thinks or knows within itself, and as a result of this interaction, creation manifests. Creation is the play of life upon itself through divine self-imagination. Spirit must create in order to be expressed. Spirit, life, soul, substance, law, and unity are all coexistent and co-eternal with each other. The only thing that changes is form. Spirit makes things out of itself by becoming the thing it makes. There is no effort in the process. Wow, no efforting? Wow. Can we get to that point where there's no efforting? That we are just creating and there's no efforting? I know that there's people here who are creative people, right? Who watch this. And, there is that point where when you're creating, when you're doing something, you're making something, you're creating something from your imagination, there's no efforting in it. Yeah, of course, there's the doing of it, but there's no efforting. It just flows, right? And that's what we look for. We look for that flow, to be in that flow, and to be one with the one. I think that's when we really feel God, when we are actually creating something. We have a different kind of an awareness. That awareness isn't an awareness of this egoic self creating. It is something that is so much larger. And I think if you talk to any person who is creative, they will tell you that same thing, right? And this happens in our everyday life, right? That we have those opportunities to be a part of creation. And we know that, because we are divine in nature, that humanity and us as individual humans, we reenact the divine nature on all three of these planes. We have a conscious mind. We are creative through law, right? And we have this body. We have the effects, and we personify this triune nature of being. So that's the nature of being, this triune nature. And everything is contained within that. And he uses this term, real man, so let's say real human, is an eternal state of complete unity with the whole. So that is, I think Buddhists would call that our natural humanity, or our natural nature is this, a complete unity with the whole. That's who we are. And, we're blind to it often. And most of the time we're blind to it. But when we wake up to that fact, then, everything is ours. Now, this summary, this summarizes everything that we are. That we are evolving individually as individual humans to a realization that we are in complete unity with spirit, that there's no separation. It's not just a catchphrase that there's no separation. It's something that has to be experienced, and everyone can experience it. And everyone can have flashes of it. And some of us as enlightened beings, and, we're talking about the great masters, have gotten to a place where there is that complete unity with the one. And, the great teachers were able to come to that place of complete unity with the one, to be enlightened beings, to be teachers of this great truth that we are all one, a part of the whole as individual creatures, but one. Everything that we have comes from spirit. Everything that spirit has is ours. And that is the great truth of these teachings. So I just want to encourage you this week, think about your purpose. You may not do truth, beauty, and you might not do all three, right? You might do one of them at a time. You might do goodness. Goodness comes in so many forms. I'm thinking about just the goodness of cooking a great meal for your family, right? And just putting all that love in it. That's goodness, right? Goodness and doing something kind for yourself. Goodness. Truth. Seek that truth, that unity with spirit. And beauty. Oh, we're in spring. Step outside your door and just greet all of that beauty that surrounds you. So everyone, next week we'll have Reverend Brzezinski with us, and we'll be going into the part 2, spiritual mind healing. And we know that there is a great healing taking place right now, that this is, this is our I think our highest calling as religious scientists, is as healers. And we're just healing. We're healing in everything that we do. So everyone, this is a pleasure to be with you, and it's always wonderful to be with New Thought Media Network. And I just want to remind everyone that you can contribute and be a part of this work, and contribute and make sure that these programmings are available to you. And there's so many things that are available. You can click at newthoughtmedianetwork.org to donate, and just move forward with these wonderful teachings. And Shay Bird, thank you so much for joining us. I see Shay Bird, and I'm not sure who else was here this morning, but it is wonderful to see you, and have a wonderful week.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity, Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center, Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.